Flash Season 4, Episode 4, Elongated Journey into the Night. This is a pretty cool episode. We get to see a character who, depending on how they decide to really follow it, may or may not actually become Plastic Man, which I thought was pretty cool at the end of the episode. I didn't catch that until like right before they were about to say it. I was like, oh yeah, that could totally be Plastic Man. Different origin story for people who aren't familiar with the character of Plastic Man. He wasn't a cop, he was just a criminal, and then he became a good guy. As far as I know, that's the other words. That may have changed because we do have like the New 52 and DC Rebirth. So who knows what that any origin is at this point. But the origin that I'm familiar with is that he was just a criminal, and then he eventually became a hero known as Plastic Man. So I thought that was awesome that they kind of dropped that name there at the end. I was like, oh, that's really cool. It's it should have dawned on me because it's like, it's Plastic Man. But I was like, oh, that's actually pretty awesome because, the fact that he was a former dirty cop instead of just a criminal is kind of what kept it different for me. It's the Flash. I wasn't really thinking about Plastic Man. He's not like the most popular character. So it was kind of cool that they did that. But all in all, I would definitely say this was a good episode. We have the main story with the characters, dealing with this guy Dimby, who used to be a cop. And, he was a cop when Barry first came on as a junior CSI, and Barry basically got him fired because he felt that he definitely did, plant this knife with fingerprints on it, and Barry tested because he wanted to be 100% sure of this case, and so, he has this guy, basically kicked off the force because he, committed perjury. So I was like, alright, it's a cool episode. We have this interaction with his character that causes Barry to reflect on the numerous times he's done whatever stupid thing that he's done. I was like, okay, at least, there's some tie-in with that. So it was kind of like he always had an issue with the guy, but now that he's the Flash and they're Team Flash, he has to look back at what he'd done, or what Dimby was trying to do back in the day, as him just trying to help people because he was so sure that this guy was guilty. And even in this episode when they argue about it, he's still sure. He's like, you screwed that up because I'm sure that guy was guilty. And I find that so interesting because they were both so adamant about, this doesn't match versus basically it was just a feeling in his gut. So it was like, he was so sure that that guy was guilty, but he still technically didn't know. And it was just that idea of, trying to do the right thing because he felt it, but, it would have sent that guy to prison if he wasn't the guy that ultimately killed his wife. But we don't really know the truth there. So I thought it was cool, that little moment where Barry has to reflect, like, all the things we've done. And, he kind of sent it to, directly to what he had done by getting him kicked off the force. But it's like, all the things they've done, it's like, we never really knew what was going to happen. And me as the Flash, I kind of just did it in the moment. All those times I went back in, well, maybe not the back in time stuff, because that was always for him. But some of the other stuff, where they were just trying to do the right thing, and bad stuff would just happen. And it was just like, yeah, that's kind of how things operate for Team Flash. So I thought it allowed for a nice little bit of reflection there. But I really like the character. He's definitely funny. So it totally makes sense that he would be Plastic Man, because Plastic Man is the jokey character. So it totally makes sense that it would actually be him. But I love the way that episode played out. Like, he was really funny and kind of a douchebag. Definitely a bit of a douchebag, but kind of funny. And then, his life was just kind of ruined by Barry, so they were, having their confrontations, and then him being a crooked cop, and him, extorting the mayor, who was, a former cop, and then how that ended up playing out, where the mayor, who of course used to be a cop, he tells them the whole story, like, yeah, I made a mistake, and he was trying to, get this money off of me because of these pictures. And then, of course, we find out that the two goons that had the guy had to be over the building, those were the guys who worked for the mayor, and so they tried to kill Joe and Barry, which is actually a pretty awesome scene with him. It was kind of funny because he's got super speed, but he still flinched, and I was like, that's actually kind of cool that he still flinched. It was like, oh crap, I just heard a gun go off, and he flinched, and then it's like, oh, they just tried to shoot me. And so of course he catches the bullets, and he does the thing where he taps their hands, so it's like, with him moving at super speed, that little tap is like a ton of force, which they never show that in this show, which I was like, oh, they actually did that this time, because they never really play with that idea where him moving at super speed, him doing a tap is a huge amount of force. Like, if you move at super speed, it's almost like having super strength. It's almost the exact same thing, depending on exactly what you're doing. But it was just like, that's very interesting. I was like, they don't really ever show him do that sort of thing. So it was kind of awesome to see him put their hands in their faces and just tap the gun so they knock each other out. And then of course, he just grabs the bullets and they get knocked out. It's like, oh, turns out the mayor is actually the bad guy. So the way the whole story played out, I thought was pretty cool. And it starts out really simple, and they go to him simply because he was involved with the bus driver who mysteriously drowned in his own tub. So I was wondering, I was like, is that going to tie into one of the other metahumans, or was that just DeVoe doing that? I'm assuming that when we find out, we'll probably end up hitting another metahuman. We'll find out that they were the ones that actually killed the bus driver for whatever reason. So that'd be interesting. It would also be even more interesting if we find out that the guy wasn't actually dead and he somehow came back to life, and that was like a weird, like he had to die in order to activate his powers. That would be weird, but that would be kind of cool if that was a nice little twist where it was like, nope, the bus driver is actually still out there or something. So that'd be cool. I just, they have the whole report and everything, so I don't think that'll be the case. But I was like, that's actually kind of awesome. It's just like weird little mystery there, but I think that will come back into play, that this bus driver just drowned in his own bathtub. Like there's got to be something to that. So, it starts off with them trying to, go through this mystery, and, that's what leads them to Denby, and, the issues that are involved with that. But, like I said, I really like the way it played out. There are a lot of funny elements. There are some good emotional elements. Barry not liking him and the issues that he was kind of facing, and the part with the board where he just writes villains on top, and it's like, you can't just assume everyone's a villain because they've got metahuman powers. And Caitlin was like the first one to kind of hit him with that, where it's like, because he hated the guy. I was like, how can you assume that he's going to be good? It's like, because I know what that's like. It's like, so do you, like, just waking up and our lives are totally different. And of course for Caitlin, she literally, like, her powers somehow make her evil. So it was like, she had a great point. It was like, you can't just assume that because you got powers, even if this guy was, a crappy person in the past, it doesn't mean he's going to be a metahuman supervillain now. Like, he can still be a crappy person, but it doesn't instantly make him, an insane supervillain. So I like that element. I thought it was actually a pretty cool element of this episode, where they have to talk about that sort of thing, and Barry has to kind of look at this guy that he, always had a big issue with, plus what they've always done as a team and how things don't always work out so perfectly, and how all that just kind of comes together. It's like, you can't just assume, even though you have two people to go on, you can't just assume all of these people that have now been hit with the dark matter wave are just going to come out as, new metahuman villains. So I thought that was cool. It was a nice, it was like the serious element for sure of the episode. And of course, them making the joke through the main storyline about Joe glowing and stuff like that. And he was like constantly, avoiding saying anything until like the very end, because he was about to get killed in a helicopter by the mayor. And then Barry comes up and saves him, and he's spinning the gun. He's looking at the mayor like, And then Joe's just like, Cecile's pregnant. Because like the whole episode he was just hiding it. So, they all celebrate that at the end, and everybody has their cigars and stuff, which is really funny because they did that in Flash and they did that in Legends of Tomorrow. Because, well, I won't spoil it, but there's a reason that they were celebrating with cigars in both episodes for similar reasons. So I was like, oh, that's very interesting. But I was like, cool. Main storyline was definitely good. The side storyline with Cisco was absolutely hilarious. I love that, where Cisco is, in the beginning of the episode, it's him and Gypsy, and he's trying to figure out what her real name is, which we find out is Cynthia. And, they're about to, do some adult things. And then her dad just pops into the room and lifts him up and stuff. And it's like, the whole episode is him running from her father because he decided to make, like, a 24-hour hunt. And Cisco has to just run from him the whole episode. And it was really funny. I love the scene where he thought he captured him. That was great because, I was like, cool, he set up a plan. He used his mind. Like, Wells was like, don't use your powers, use your brain. Like, that's what you got. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That's totally going to work. And it seemed like it did. He did the hologram thing and the gun, like the fake gun and all that stuff. And then he trapped him. And he was like, good enough for Reverse Flash, good enough for you. Especially considering, they couldn't use their powers at least. And I was like, well, that's great. He's got him. And then he pulls out this blade. I forgot what he said. He took it from some death thing with death or whatever. And then he just stabs this force field and he's just cutting it open. I was like, well, that sucks. And then Cisco was struggling to like get out of the harness. He's like, oh, he's trying to run, and he's just trapped in this harness. But he takes off. He's about to get captured anyway because of course he's hiding behind Barry's suit and his hair is sticking out from the side. But because I'm calling him by his hero name because his regular name is just Josh. So Breachers sounds way cooler. But Breachers sees Denby. He sees him on the thing and he calls him a plastoid. So he was like, these are the creatures that like wiped out my whole planet and stuff. So that distracts him. Is like, screw my girlfriend's stupid boyfriend. I'm gonna kill this creature that wiped out my entire Earth. So I thought that was very interesting. It was like at the last second, but it led to a really funny scene where Cisco was like freaking out, and then Barry's like, he calls on the comms. He's like, is anybody there? And he like jumps back and falls on the ground. So that whole sequence I thought was great. And then of course he ends up defending Denby at the end of the episode against Breacher, and that allows for Breacher to kind of gain a bit of respect for him. And when they leave and everything, he ends up calling Gypsy by her real name, so Cisco figures it out. But it was simple, and it was definitely funny. And that was pretty much how we got to see Wells in this episode. Like, he wasn't, oddly enough, he wasn't involved in like the main storyline at all. He was just involved with Cisco. But it was definitely good. I enjoyed the comedy of this. Some of the serious sides were definitely well done. And then of course they go to, we get to the end of the episode where Barry's talking with Denby. It's like, hey, I fixed up your office, of course, after the big explosion, which was a cool scene because Barry grabs Iris and they phase through the floor. I was like, that was pretty cool. Although he could have phased through the door as well. I was like, because that's what I was thinking when he like broke the door off and he just like tossed the handle. I was like, so he couldn't just phase through that, because that would have, I felt like that would have been faster than breaking the door. Plus it would have destroyed no traces, but it didn't matter because the whole place was destroyed anyway. Which, now that I think about that, shouldn't the door have been unlocked? Did they destroy the whole place and then they locked it and it went back? Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess that was to kind of make it so if Denby did come back, he wouldn't be suspicious. He would just open it up, but everything's destroyed inside. It doesn't make a difference. But anyway, they go through and look around, and then Iris opens the drawer with the bomb in it, and they phase through the floor, which was a great scene. But when they get to the end and Barry is talking to him about training him to be a hero and stuff like that, he finally gets the name DeVoe, and it's like they have a flashback to the last season where the one dude from the future, I can't remember his name at all, but he mentions like Zoom, and he's like DeVoe, and then they cut to Barry going into the future when he was trying to figure out how to beat Savitar, and the future version of himself was like, this is where we made the neural inhibitor to defeat DeVoe. And it's like, crap, this is that new villain that everybody kept talking about, and he's one of the main villains, because that's why the other guy from the future mentioned Zoom and Reverse Flash and then DeVoe, because like these are the big villains that you have faced throughout time that have gone down in history as some of your greatest foes. So now they know kind of a little bit who they're dealing with, at least. So definitely looking forward to where we're headed now, but this is definitely a good one. I'm definitely excited for where we're going with. I don't know how often we'll actually see him, but I would love for them to like really utilize Plastic Man. It might fall in line with the same thing as how they did Wally, where I mentioned one person has to look stupid, but in this case, it's not the same set of powers, so it's not like you have two speedsters who can just like super speed and beat up the villains in a second. So maybe they don't have to do that anymore. Like, you have your one speedster, you have Plastic Man, of course you still have Cisco, who like sometimes goes out into the field, not as much because Barry comes back and he's like at the top. He's so great that nobody else needs to even be outside of the Star Labs. But I would love to see them truly utilize Plastic Man, because he's, especially in the comics, he's like an insane asset. He is actually, oddly enough, one of the most powerful characters, because of course, like which they kind of showed in this episode, you can't punch him. He'll just stretch. You can't shoot him because the bullets will just stretch, and then he can just, shoot it out of his nose or spit out of his mouth if he wants to. He can turn into like anything that he wants to. Technically, in the comics, he can change the color of his body as well. So, like, technically his costume, this is a joke, I don't know if that was real or not, but there was a joke in something I was watching with him where technically his costume was actually just his skin, and he just morphed it to look like a costume, but it's just him, and that's why he can turn into anything, because it's like, well, if you morph into this, where do your clothes go? And he was like, what clothes? And it's because his costume is just his body morphed and changed into a different color to look like a costume. So I don't know if that's 100% true or anything like that, but I thought that was funny, and I think that's partly the case. But he can pretty much turn into anything that he wants to, and he's oddly enough one of the most powerful characters, because it's hard to take that guy down. Like, of course, you have to freeze him, but yeah, other than that, he's insanely powerful. He can morph into anything, but that would have to build up over time. He's not going to be like changing into different people and stuff just in this season, unless they do a huge time skip like halfway through. But they can really utilize him, and that would actually be really cool to have Plastic Man in the show. Just have some kind of support for that character. He's definitely a lesser known character unless you watch some of the cartoons. But I thought that was really cool, so I would love to see him get utilized. I can't wait to see where the F this plan is going with DeVoe. Like, that is just the big question. Every time the episode ends, I'm just like, what is he trying to do? What is the point here? What does he want from the Flash? Is he trying to take his power? Is he trying to just kill him? Did he just bring him out because it was like, he's the Flash, he's an insanely great superhero. I want to use my insane intellect just to kill him. Like, I just don't understand what the plan is. So I don't know. Like I mentioned before, it's like, is he trying to steal the powers from all the people, which he could have done without letting them go free? So who knows? It's still up in the air, but definitely a great episode. Of course, we'll love to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it, and I actually want to know what you guys thought about them kind of making them be, by the end of the episode, Plastic Man. If you aren't familiar with the character, I highly recommend that you actually look him up, because he is actually a really cool character. He can do a lot, like I said, change his face and change the shape of his body into different colors and all sorts of crazy stuff. So we'll highly recommend you look up the character if you aren't familiar with him. If they decide to truly utilize him, which they need to because he's insanely powerful, that would be great. But like I said, we probably wouldn't see that until maybe towards the end of this season, if he does really go through the training. And I hope we do see him more in general, just because he's kind of a douchebag character, so I think he would make for some great comedy. Him and Harry, I don't know how that would play out, because sometimes they both have like their little douchebag modes. So I would kind of love to see them interact, because I think that would just be great. But I hope he gets utilized. And like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about him being introduced. If you like the character, don't like the character, because I do expect, considering they did the Plastic Man thing, we should probably expect to see him at least, a decent amount of time. Maybe it's not like he's going to be a regular cast member, but I think we should expect to see him a decent amount of time throughout this season. So that's my guess on it. But would love to know what you guys thought about his character, and then introducing Plastic Man into the TV DC universe. And if you like the character, don't like the character, especially if you're a comic fan, what you think of this iteration of his character, because I think they did a really good job, even though they kind of changed it where it's like, oh, he was a crooked cop. It's kind of the same thing. Like I said, he used to, in the comics, he was just a straight up criminal, and then he became a hero after, like the original story, I believe, is Batman saved him from a vat of acid, which is what gave him the powers. But that was pretty much it. And eventually he ended up becoming a hero, and he just became a great asset to, the Justice League. And this could be kind of the same thing, except, just a smaller scale. Crooked cop to a good person, to working with Team Flash. So that's my theory on it. I actually like the idea, but I'd love to know what you guys thought about the character and how he may or may not get utilized in the future. And of course, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.